Okay, while the last mics are brought on. Welcome, nice to see you all. My name is George Beers from Wageningen University in the Netherlands, a university dedicated to agri-food. So, my first question to you is, how many of you are consuming food? Hands up, please. Wow, 100%. Panel, we have an audience. Okay. The core question I want to address to this honorable panel is, why is FIWARE Agri-food, why is it a good match? It is a good match, I dare to say that. It was mentioned in quite some presentations today and yesterday. And during the FIWARE program, we had, in the Accelerator program, we had more than 120 very nice applications developed by startups and SMEs. And they really make a difference in the sector. So we feel that FIWARE helps to make agri-food a better sector. So that's, in understanding why that is, I want to ask, I will drop some questions to this panel about the relation between FIWARE and agri-food, about the challenges the sector is facing, specific characteristics of this sector, and how these characteristics fit the FIWARE concept, and what new opportunities FIWARE might offer to the sector. So let me introduce this panel, because I'm really proud of it. First panel on my left side is Pilar Garrido, and Pilar is working for the Junta de Andalucía. She's head of unit of studies and statistics for agriculture, fishery and rural development. Great to have you on board, Pilar. The second lady in line is Arianna Giuliodori, yeah, I had to practice on that. Arianna is representing the Italian Farmers Organization. And mind you, this is an organization with 1.6 million members. So there's somebody on the chair there. Then we have Juan Sagarna. And Juan is representing the Spanish Cooperatives in Agri-food. Welcome. Then we have a thrill seeker, I guess, Andreas Füßler. Andreas is representing GS1, which is an international organization for uniform standards for recording and sharing data. And Andreas is representing the German branch of GS1. And he will inform us about standards. And then we have, let's stay in line, it's not in my... for the academic reflection, we asked Sjaak to take a seat in the panel. Sjaak Wolfert is from Wageningen University. And last, but absolutely not least, I'm very proud that he's there, because the last one is representing one of the diamonds in the FIWARE tree, I would say. It's David Raba. Yeah, I'm raising the expectations now. David Raba, and he's representing Ubikwa, which is a Spanish SME, and they made this in-silo application, which is famous all over the world now. And it's the example of business success based on FIWARE, I would say. So, wow. Okay, let's start. We don't have a very well-organized session, so the people will talk to each other, but we will see how it goes. The first question I have to the panel. What are the key challenges for agri-food? And I want to ask Arianna to start and give her top 3 of these key challenges.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Or buenos dias, no sé. Sorry, I will speak English just like the others. I hope one day. But if you want to exchange afterwards, I'll be happy to talk even in Spanish with you. But let's start from the challenges. We need to start from the big picture here. And apologies. The big pictures seems always to be far away. But we'll see together they aren't. And they aren't far away from what you do every day. Top 3. Let's start from food security and food safety in a world where the population is growing and where the FAO is telling us there will soon be 10 billion people. The same world where on the one side people are starving, so are hungry and they are dying from hunger, and on the other side people are obese and are dying from obesity. So we have to keep in mind that kind of paradoxes that we are experiencing. Second huge challenge, climate change and the exposure of our natural resources to extreme phenomena that are affecting all of us. On the one hand, extreme droughts, and then all of a sudden violent floods, for instance. And I would say third important challenge, urbanization. The world will soon be concentrated around mega cities, and we follow the panel of smart cities, so it's the right challenge to mention. Soon, more than 60% of the world population will live in the city. Why am I telling you this? Because these challenges are affecting directly the way we produce food and are imposing on us choices. And what we are seeing, if I may, are two models of facing these challenges. If anybody among you had the chance to visit last year, for instance, Expo in Milan, which was around food, from the International Expo, probably you realize that there are two ways of answering to these challenges. On the one hand, there are those who say we have to produce more no matter what. I'm not talking about Europe, I'm talking about world models, no matter what. So people are not important, the phytosanitary products I'm using don't matter as long as I'm able to produce more and at low prices. On the other hand, we've got another idea, and we don't want to produce more because we've got another challenge coming up. We already have food, enough food for 10 billion people, but 1/3 of it gets lost. So we're wasting too much. So probably this model could be represented by the motto, produce better and waste less. So these are the challenges. And why am I telling you this? Because I think that you are expressing here a potential that the FIWARE community, the technology around it can choose. Actually, you can choose, because technology is not neutral. And what from the farmer side we're expecting is that technology can help us not only in meeting these challenges, but also in improving the way we make it transparent to people. And that's where I think, for instance, FIWARE can help, is a positive element, a positive tool. Make it evident to people that they can make choices that are truly aware. And so transparency, traceability, building an alliance between the 100% of you who's eating every day and us that are producing food all along the food chain.
Okay. Any additions to that in the panel? Yeah, Arianna?
Yeah, maybe I can add something to that. You already mentioned it, but it's also about transparency. So George asked the question, so we are eating all day, everybody of us. So food is very much an integral part of us. In comparison to other technology, you're using also a car or other things, but you can leave it outside. It's not something that goes into your body. So we see that people nowadays are very much aware of food, how it is produced, where does it come from. So also the ethical dimension, the ethical aspects of food is becoming more important, and I also see that as a kind of additional challenge.
Okay.
I agree, and
Andreas?
to add another point, maybe also the logistic part becomes more and more important as we face consumer trends like individualization. We also have in the food sector, as well as according to eat more regionalized, and therefore maybe batches or lots may become smaller, and so it's becoming a bigger challenge how to transport in an efficient way all the food throughout the whole supply chain.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to stress the importance of the current structure of our farms, of our agricultural sector in Europe. We have a lot of small farms, and this challenge will face another additional challenge, because we have to take into account this situation. We have to find the best ways to achieve this challenge in the best way, to trying to overcome these barriers and trying to find aggregators of the demand, drivers to implement, for instance, these new technologies in the farm. I think it's a big challenge, because, for instance, we have some experience from other countries with larger farms that maybe the technology could be easily implemented.
Okay. I think people that to provide you and your children's with good and enough food, we have some. I hope you have some idea of the challenges this sector is facing nowadays, today. Number one in your top three, Arianna, was on food safety and health. And Pilar, maybe you can help us a little bit to give your ideas on how can we improve on this.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to apologize because of my English is not so good. I don't use it very often, so I will try. I'll do my best. I would like to start thanking for inviting me to take part in this summit and in this panel. Both for food security and healthy diet for consumers are fundamental issues for administrations. In this way, we have been working on these issues with concrete policies in European Union and in the region of Andalucía for many, many years. But we think that we can continue advancing in this matter, taking advantage of the possibilities offered by the internet and digital technologies. The agri-food sector must take full advantage of the potential of the digital economy and adapt technologies to meet the challenges we face in the future. Food safety, a safe, healthy diet according to the new habits of life of the consumers, but also other challenges such as improving the competitiveness of the agri-food chain, and food production sustainable and respectful with the environment to give food for everybody. We have a great volume and diversity of data, structure or not, that to put them to the service of the agri-food sector demand specific procedures of integration and management of a technology to be able to extract knowledge. This technology is continually changing, and its application is has only just begun. Andalucía is one of the European regions with the greatest weight in agriculture, placing at the head of 15 member states of the United States, of the European Union, with the participation of its agri-food production in the regional economy, double of the national economy, and triple of the European one. The value of agriculture productions exceeds 10.500 million last year. We have an important agri-food industry that is the motor of the agriculture sector. Much of it has a cooperative nature. It's an important fact, which allows the active participation of producers in the value chain. That is very important for us. This business model highlights foreign trade, which is growing significantly, and therefore the ability of the Andalusian and European agri-food sector to meet the demands of European and non-European consumers. We have a positive balance with 5.2 million euros last year. But in addition, the agri-food sector moves an important auxiliary industry, innovative, modern, and able to respond to the technology needs. In order to stimulate all the technological revolution, we have taken slow but safe steps to advance transparency and open data, participating in European projects like Homer project, or with concrete tools such as Price and Market Observatory or a letter network and phytosanitary information, where information of great utility is presented for the sector. We recently published a mobile application with this framework. But we think we have a long way to go. So from Andalucía, we are leading a project supported by European Union called Traceability and Big Data in Value Chain. Within this project and the help of a valuable technology, we want to answer a serious question that we have. The question asks, can we know the experiences of consumers in real time to adapt production partners, being more effective, reducing waste? Question 2, can we measure, predict, and value the environmental sustainability of agri-food activity? Can we have a system linked to big data to determine the environmental performance of the products, their carbon footprint? Can we develop intelligent surveillance systems to adapt the way we produce the whole chain? Can we establish technologies to fight against food fraud? We also think that we should not face these challenges alone in the administration. We think that the best way to do this is to have a public and private partnership through a cluster of companies that collaborate in the project. In this sense, regional cooperation and the exchange of experience and knowledge are the basis for the development and success of the project. Thus, we also consider this summit so interesting. In particular, we identified 3 specific fields of work to discuss with other interesting regions. Topic 1, value chain life cycles. Topic 2, intelligent monitoring of the value chain with the aim of improving competitiveness and the agri-food sector. Topic 3, incorporate the experience of the consumers and the different operators of the food chain in the decision-making processes. In addition, it is necessary to address issues such as open data, interoperability, data governance, and information security, cybersecurity, as a cross-cutting issue. In order to finish and to try answer the question, we believe that there should be legal harmonization in some issues like transparency, open data, reuse the information of the public sector, and to establish establishment of standard to their interoperability. In this way, we will be able to take full advantage of these new technologies, and we will be able to respond to the challenges that are being presented to us now and that will be presented to us in the future.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is
So long.
a very comprehensive answer.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Anything to add, dear panel? No, I think one of the important messages that Pilar is giving us is that there is also always will be a public interest in this agri-food. That's because governments and regional governments, municipalities are responsible for providing food for the people, for their citizens. I think that's a point that we have to consider. And it's not only for subsidies, but also for legislation and stimulation, I would say. Okay, okay. Let me try to make the switch to information. Juan, I'm looking at you. All these challenges, are the companies in the food chain able to use the information that is needed to develop, to record? How is the situation on that?
I suppose that all the technologies need some critical mass to be really useful. And the fuel for this technology are data. And everybody wants from the farmers to obtain their data to start with these tools. And we have some problem because in some way the farmers are in certain manner reluctant to share those data without any guarantee that they are going to obtain benefits for their sharing. Okay, and they of course need assurance that their data will be used in a safety framework, and they are concerned about the issues like confidentiality or the quality of data or these kind of things. But on the other hand, they realize that the data revolution could be very valuable for them, and it can help them to improve their profits, their yields, to reduce their agrochemical treatments, and even to have more presence into the market, even to connect directly with the consumers. Okay, so we have to find a way to integrate all of these aspects. We work for the National Association of Cooperatives, and of course we are going to speak about the possibility to use the cooperatives like a way to facilitate the sharing of data between farmers. In fact, the cooperative businesses were created 1 century ago to share information, to obtain better prices, to be in the markets in a better way for the farmers. And we think that currently the cooperatives in Europe, there are more than 20,000 cooperative business in Europe. We bring together more than 25 million of farmers in Europe, and we can contribute to a smooth implementation of those technology and a good exchange of data between farmers and the new stakeholders providing these services.
How about trust, ownership of data?
Yes, we can establish agreement with the providers of the service, trying to keep safety the data. In fact, some of our cooperatives work currently in this way. Okay, but we propose agreements between the providers of solution and stakeholders in the agri-food chains, for instance, the cooperatives, or local association of farmers, or machinery rings, and to take advantage of the already collaborative tools in the agri-food sector.
Panel agrees? Or
George, may I just
Yeah.
top on this? And to top on what Juan was rightly saying about data, I want to tell you a story. Farmers are growing crops, no? Or let's say cultivating crops, or they've got their breeding cows, milk. Let's take the milk for instance. 2 years ago, the worst crisis in the dairy sector, maybe you heard about it, exploded in Europe. But what's happening? Actually, farmers are growing crops or milking their cows, but they get no reward in terms of price for what they do. That was the clue, that was the issue. You're all here to do business, so if you're working and you get no reward, it makes no sense, okay? But anyhow, in agriculture, there are some economic approaches because, well, the capital is very important, the investments and so on and so forth. Why am I telling you this story to top on what he was saying about data? Because I read somewhere in an American newspaper that data are the new crops. Oh my God. Oh my God. So I'm happy to know that data are very important. I know that data are the key, but if farmers have to read this incredible article, Data are the New Crops, with their own experience about what they feel when they have to sell their products and they're not able to earn their own living, you can feel. Can you understand how they feel? That is why it's so important to face this challenge and to find the right solution. That is where it's important to work on open source approaches. This is why we are looking, for instance, at FIWARE as an option, because what we want, representing farmers' interests, and to keep our farmers free and to make it sure that they are owners of what they do. It doesn't mean not to share. Huh? I want to be clear. Sharing is fundamental, and the role of those who are collecting farmers, helping them to work together is very, very important. But please, we have to find the right way and to protect farmers not to experiencing the same tragedy of what is happening along the food chain with the crops that they are producing every day.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
We have different clients because we have a lot of agriculture and 2 or 3 companies that is the distribution. So we work with all the value chain because it's important that agriculture use the data to develop in the value chain.
Okay.
I
Andreas?
think so too, that this whole topic of data and the opportunities IT already provides is of high potential. Because if we see what Jacques was mentioning in the beginning with the transparency and to be able to trace back where food comes from and to share this information, the legal requirements become more and more strict on that. And on the other hand, also the consumers are forcing more and more information on the products. And therefore, both this direction lead to the situation where it's essential that you manage how to have the data raised and also to have the right quality of data and how to share this data among the ones who require it. And therefore, I think this whole topic has a lot of potential. And I mean, for the moment, there might be things in this situation where data and data sharing might be in some parts optional, but maybe in future, if things become more and more in the direction I have described, the more and more farmers who are sharing that information, it becomes then kind of obligatory as well. So I think this can be foreseen that this is a direction which will come.
Jacques?
Yeah, to elaborate a little bit on that, I heard over there a little bit about protecting farmers. I don't say I totally disagree with that, but what Andreas was mentioning also is that we should also protect the consumer, and I think that's also a task of the public governments. They protect the consumer because we have also nice or maybe not so nice examples of food that was produced with a lot of chemicals, or there were dioxin in it, that kind of things that are also happening. So also the consumer has the right to know how the food is produced, and well, that is also nowadays you can do a lot with data about that.
Okay. I want to make a step closer to FIWARE now. We talked about information, and in the FIWARE discussion, in every presentation there was standardization was the key challenge. Just to inform you, in Agri-food we have thousands of standards. We have organizations for pig standards, but when Denmark and Holland agree, this is another standard in Spain and Italy. We have mushroom standards, we have all kinds of standards. And existing organizations on that. So, Andreas, what kind of strategy should we follow in FIWARE and Agri-food to deal with this mosaic of standards? Help me out.
I think you're fully right. I mean, standardization is one word, but there's much behind it, and very divisive things around it. And therefore, from a FIWARE strategy, I think it's important that you make your minds up exactly looking into what are you talking about when you're looking into technical things and standardization of those technical things. Because there are many different things and different organizations dealing with different subjects. And therefore, it's essential that it's not per se this or that way. You have to see and find your strategy how best to do it. With standardization, it's always a critical thing in that sense to find the right timing. Because if you are too early, not many are interested and you don't get the critical mass. If you are too late, then people have already invested in this or that direction, and it's very difficult to come to common sense again. And therefore, one of my recommendations would be to look what is already there, because time to market is, of course, also for FIWARE essential, and therefore it wouldn't make sense to reinvent the wheel, because there are already, as you mentioned, lots of standards available, and then you have to see how far things are going. Are we talking, as you mentioned, on regional standards? Is it about global standards? Is it about, like we heard in the panel before, that de facto standards set by a couple of companies, or is it about open standards where, for instance, in the supply chain, you don't know where the products of the agri-food sector ends up in the end? So to cluster this a bit, you have on the one side formal standards, which are set on the national base by formal national organizations like the NNI in the Netherlands, or in Spain the Spanish standardization INOC, in Germany the DIN, for instance. And those formal standardization organizations build then on a European and also on the global level the members of organizations like CEN, CENELEC, ETSI here in Europe, or ISO, IAC, and ITU on the international global level. And if you want to influence those standards, of course, you then have to engage on the national level in the formal national bodies, because they are building those European and global organizations. And that is one part. On the other hand, like organizations I'm coming from, GS1, we are industry consortium, so to say, but we are not 2 or 3 companies doing something. We are a consortium of nowadays almost 1.5 million companies worldwide working together, implementing standards. It's the most widely used standards in the supply chain, for instance. And what GS1 is doing very much is also not only developing standards in the community, but also helping in implementing those standards. So that is a big difference to organizations like I mentioned before, because they are more dealing on the level of developing the standards. So that is a difference. And on the other hand, GS1 is a liaison partner to all those other standardization bodies I've mentioned. There are close links, and also many of the GS1 standards are ISO standards or SEN standards or DIN standards. So you find a very interconnected field here. And and what we as GS1 also are doing, that more and more it becomes relevant not only to have technical standards, but also to have process standards describing how in a best efficient way to handle this or that process, and to give guidance on that, especially also to support SMEs in this field, to overcome barriers they have, which large companies might not have.
There are also organizations, companies that are not only developing standards, they're implementing, they're claiming the standard for themselves. I'm referring to the lock-in issue.
That's
Is that
right.
how to deal with that?
Yeah, I think you need to identify which are relevant organizations in this field. Like in the agri-food sector, maybe Global Gap could be an organization to deal with, which deal with the certification processes. Or Orga Invent, which, for instance, is dealing with labeling in the field of cattle identification. And things like that, or like you have a lot of things which are available, like the Acro VOC, which is a thesaurus of the FAO, where we have already a lot of definitions and things like that. You just take and implement in your applications. So the overall message I would give is not reinvent the wheel where already things exist and are in practice. And where you see gaps, you have to see how to deal with them, whether to fill them by yourself or whether to get to those organizations which have developed those standards in the first place, and try to close those gaps in order to fulfill all your necessities you have.
Okay.
Yes, regarding the importance of in this case, in the last months and a couple of years, we have received a lot of visits from companies providing quite interesting services, providing data, and at the end, our farmers don't need data. They need the interpretation of those data, okay? Because they need not the raw data, the interpretation in order to act and trying to cut and test emergence or this kind of things. And it means that we need a smart integral solutions that can work with different kinds of data and with different kinds of capture those data. And the companies that visit us are always offering, for instance, the satellite images, very good sensors, low-cost satellites, the last one, drones. All of these are partial solutions to our needs. We need an integral integration of all of those data in smart systems, able to produce recommendations to the farmers. And of course, initiatives like FIWARE, encouraging all the people working in different areas to produce their solutions with an approach to be interoperable with the other ones are essential.
And maybe to add, as GS1, for instance, is a global organization, a global community, GS1 organization exists in every country of the world, and therefore, if you have, for instance, pilot approaches where you need to find partners with whom to implement those pilots, just get in contact with the GS1 organizations, and they are more than happy to support and help getting pilots on the street.
I would like to raise a question to Andreas, actually, because our fear when we talk about standards is that standards could, well, we need standards, but we would like to see how can standards help us protect the differences that we have and that make us unique on the market. Sometimes we feel that some of the offers in terms of services that are offered to us very often in the last times, are optimizing the way we work, are trying to propose simple processes, the way to collect data, but in the end, we feel that the aim is the standardization in terms of a homologation of what we do all across the country, all across the EU maybe, or all across the world, and we wonder if this is to please the companies that are proposing this kind of systems and that are also selling products with it, or is it to help us really being more effective? So yeah, I really would like to know, can standards help us in this way?
That's one of the reasons why GS1 is so widespread in each country and an own organization, because the world is different in each country, and businesses are different, and there are different histories and so on. So the world is not equal everywhere, and that's why we have those local organizations to help on the local needs. But to reach such efficiencies, of course, you need then also a level where those standards are on a global base equal, knowing that, of course, there are specialities in this or that country which needs to be addressed. So it's the approach to meet both sides of that story.
Okay. One of the problems with agri-food is that it makes hungry. So, but I have a final question to our SME startup. David, what kind of challenges did you face when starting your business, and how did FIWARE help you with that? Can you give some light on that?
Okay. Let's play things start.
Yeah.
Thanks, George. We try to solve what we try to solve is just an inventory problem. Some of you know, maybe not. We develop a device that is capable to make measures on silos on farms. We measure which is the remaining volume of each silo, the content of these silos is fit for animal feeding. So we are just solving an inventory problem. Okay. What we provide, we'd like to be the iPhone of the silos. Okay, that's the real reason. Eventually, a farmer could go to the market and buy our service and install it in their farms and make measures of their silos. This is beautiful. It is fantastic, but we are aware that the real situation, and here I slightly disagree with my colleagues, there are a lot of farms, small farms, but the trend is big players that are controlling small farms, at least in our sector, let's say animal producers. Large companies make use of small farms, so our real client becomes the large company. The large company is interested on taking this data and make use of this data. So here it's a good point that where FIWARE has helped us, because what we are selling in a way it's the experience of having the feed stocked under control in a rush, just doing it very easy. And in a way, what is being sold it's FIWARE. Because we make available the data, we make feasible to capture this information, but it's FIWARE which is providing this information in an open way, in a secure way, we could guarantee services across FIWARE platforms. That's the reason that we are really interested on one of the aims of the FIWARE of becoming a recognized brand. You know, if FIWARE will become a recognized brand, it will be easier for us to sell our product through, because we are going with FIWARE. And another thing that has helped us also is we joined to the IoT Ready program. The IoT Ready program allows us to sell our product as something like an open hardware, because we are selling our product. It's not hardware; it's hardware as a service. You know, you buy our hardware, and you are able or you are capable to take my hardware and install it in your own service, in your own systems. So you are not depending on my systems. You are buying my smart device, but you are able to deploy it in your system. So these are two key points that has helped us also to overcome, to break some barriers when we try to go to large players, because small farms it's very nice, but the large players would buy more silos than only one farm.
Okay, so this is an interesting extra feature of FIWARE, that if it's FIWARE endorsed, it would help the marketing of the SMEs. Yeah, I like that one. Okay, I want to close this session. I don't go into conclusions. I think we had an interesting discussion, starting with the challenges and ending up with some experiences with FIWARE. I want to thank the panel for their wise words and their good visions. And I want to thank you all for listening to us. And I hope that you have more understanding of what's happening in the relation between FIWARE and Agri-food. Thank you.
First two panels and all the panelists. We will go to lunch now. We are half an hour late, but we will synchronize with the original planned agenda after lunch. So the break will be reduced to 1 hour. Please be back in the different rooms at 3 o'clock. And here we will continue then at 3 with the panel on smart industry. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you.